The next unit we're going to cover is called transformations. A transformation is a change in position, size, or shape. Now, there are 4 types of transformations. The first one is a translation. The second type is a reflection. The third type is a rotation. And the fourth type of transformation is a dilation. Now, the first type that we're going to talk about is the translation. So a translation is a transformation where all points of a figure are moved the same distance in the same direction. Now, another word that we call translation is a slide. So you can think of a geometric figure sliding one way or the other. So it's not changing in shape or size or anything like that. It's just kind of sliding from where it started to another place. So in number 1, it says tell whether each transformation appears to be a translation. Now, if we go with the points moving in the same distance, you could make 3 points on the corners of this triangle, and then 3 points on the corner of the second triangle. And you look and you see if all of them were kind of moved in the same direction, the same distance. So this top one was kind of moved down into the side. This bottom one was also moved down into the side. And this other bottom one was moved down into the side. So it looks like this triangle shifted from up top or slid down into the right. So we would consider this a translation. So we'd put yes. Now, the second one, this heart, you can kind of look. We can tell that this heart and this heart is the same size, so it didn't get bigger or smaller. And it looks like the heart started down here and kind of slid up and over. So we could put points and show that. Or you can just visualize it sliding up and over. So this also would be considered a translation. Now, in number 3, is there any way I can take this, it almost looks like an upside down frown, and slide it so that all of a sudden it became a smile? No, there's no way. Unless we rotated it or flipped it, there's no way to take this figure and move it up to the right or down to the left and it completely change orientation. So this would not be considered a translation because it almost flips over. It's not just slid one way or the other. Now, let's look at it on the coordinate plane. So the first one we're going to look at is talking about a horizontal translation. So horizontal is side to side, which is the x-axis. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the points for A, B, and C first. So this first triangle, ABC, A's coordinates are -3, 2. B's coordinates are -2, 5. And C's coordinates are -1, 2. Now, once we find A, B, and C, we're going to look at A prime, B prime, and C prime. The little tick mark is what we call prime, and that helps us determine which one is our original figure and which one is our new figure. So the original is just ABC. The new figure, after we translated it, would be A prime, B prime, and C prime. So if I'm looking for the coordinates of those, A prime would be 3, 2. B prime would be 4, 5. And C prime would be 5, 2. Now, to figure out, this one tells me there's a horizontal change, but just in general, to figure out how this figure moved, we would look at one letter. So I'm going to go with A, and I'm going to try to go from A to A prime and see in what direction I actually have to go. So if I start at A prime, it looks like I'm going to have to go to my right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if A moved 6 to the right, we know that if we're going to the right on the x-axis, that is positive. So we went in the direction of positive 6, and we went side to side, which is x. So let's check and make sure that's right. So if you want to check, you would take your original x, which is -3, and we would add 6. So if you type that in your calculator, -3 plus 6, you end up with 3. So does that match? It does. Okay, let's try it one more time just to make sure. So we'll take our original x and b, -2, we'll add 6, and that will give us a +4, which is what we have in B prime. So obviously the x is changing by 6. So here it asks for the rule. The rule just means how it changes. So we would write x plus 6 in the x position. Now, if you look at your y's, all of these are the same. 2 and 2, 5 and 5, 2 and 2. They didn't change at all. And we know that because we didn't have to go up or down at all here, which means if your y doesn't change, you just keep the original y, just like we did here. Now, the next example, we're looking at a vertical translation. So this time we're going to be going up and down, and that is our y, a change in y. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write down A, B, and C, the coordinates. So A would be -3, 2. B would be 3, 4. And C would be 3, 2. Then we're going to look at A prime, B prime, and C prime and write those down. So A prime would be -3, -4. B prime would be 3, -2. And C prime would be 3, -4. Now it asked me for the rule. So to figure out what the rule is, I'm going to start with one of these original letters and see where it moved. So this time I'm going to look at B and see how I go from B to B prime. So if I start at B, it looks like I'm going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So B moved down 6. So we know if we're going down on the y-axis, that means negative. So we actually went in the negative direction, 6. And if we're going up and down, that is our y-axis. Now, to make sure this is correct, we want to check. So let's look at our original y in point A, which is 2. So 2 minus 6 would give me a -4. So that works. And then I'm going to check B as well, just to make sure. So 4 minus 6 gives me a -2. So that one also checks out. So it looks like the rule for y is y minus 6. Now, if you look at your x's, we have -3, -3, +3, +3, +3, +3. So our x's didn't change, hence why we didn't have to go right or left on the graph. So that means we leave x exactly the same. Okay, so I want you to try example 3. So I want you to write down these points, and then I want you to write what you think the rule is. Okay, so for your points, you should have gotten A is 1/3, B is 5/4, and C is 3/0. Then for A prime, B prime, and C prime, you should have gotten A prime is -4, -1, B prime is 0, 0, and C prime is -2, -4. Now, when you found your rule, hopefully you did it how I taught you. So I'm going to go with B and see how B changed. So going from B to B prime, I went left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So left is negative, and then I went down 1, 2, 3, 4. Down is also negative. So my x, which is side to side, changed by a -5, and my y, which is up and down, changed by a -4. So on the back of your notes, here's the summary. If you have a horizontal change, your x will change, your y will stay the same. So horizontal, x changes, y stays the same. Vertical translation, x stays the same, y changes, and then just a general translation, both can change. So let's look at coordinates and see if we can translate them. Giving a vector is a set of points where you have these kind of pointed arrow type parentheses. So let's look at number 1. So in number 1, we have 0 here, which means our x is not changing at all. So for A prime, it'd stay -7, and I'll come back to the y. For B prime, our 1 would stay. I'll come back to the other one. And for C prime, our 3 would stay. Now, our y is changing by -4. So I would have to do -7 minus -4. Sorry, not -7. I'd have to do 5 minus 4, which is 1. Then I'd have to do 2 minus 4, which is a -2. And then I'd also do -1 minus 4, which is a -5. Okay, so let's try one more of those. Those are pretty simple because most of us can add and subtract. Let's try number 4. So number 4, both my x and my y is changing here. So for n prime, I'd have to do 3 minus 4, which is a -1. Then for my y, I'd have to do -3 minus 3, which is a -6. And then for O prime, I'd do 4 minus 4, which is 0. Then I'd do -6 minus 3, which is a -9. Then P prime would be -5 minus 4, which is a -9. And -5 minus 3 is a -8. And last we have Q prime. So again, -5 minus -4 is a -9. -6 minus -3 is also a -9. Now, I want you to try number 3. The next example I want to look at is number 5. Now, number 5 asks me to translate the figure with the given vector, state the rule, and tell the coordinate of the image, and graph the pre-image and the image. So the first thing that we want to look at is the vector. This is telling us how your x and your y is changing. So my x is changing by 3, and my y is changing by -1. So we can go ahead and write our rule for that. We know x changes by a +3, so we put x plus 3, and y changes by a -1, so we'd put y minus 1. Now, we want to also write the image coordinates, the new ones, once we translate it. So remember, when we write our new a, we're going to put a prime. So we're going to do -2 plus 3, which gives us 1, and -1 minus 1, which is a -2. We do the same thing for b, so we write b prime. We do 0 plus 3, which is 3, and -1 minus 1, sorry, -3 minus 1, which is a -4. Last, we do c prime. So we do 3 plus a -2, which is 1, and -2 minus 1, which is a -3. Now, the instructions ask me to graph the pre-image and the image. So the pre-image is your original, so your original A, B, and C. So we graph A. Make sure you label your points. Then B is 0, -3, and C is -2, -2. Then we would connect all those points to make your shape. So that's our pre-image. Now we're going to graph our image. So we take our new points. A prime is 1, -2. Make sure you label that A prime, and I suggest using different colors. Then we're going to do B prime, which is 3, -4. And then C prime is 1, -3. Then you connect all those points to get your new image. And as you can see, they're exactly the A and C, and A prime and C prime are exactly the same distance apart. So is A and B. It just kind of moved to the right and down, which makes sense because +3 in the x direction is to the right, and a -1 in the y direction is down. All right, now let's try one more of those. So looking at number 6, our rule is 2, 0. So that means that our x is changing by a +2. Our y is not changing because it's 0. So when we write our rule, we'd have x plus 2 and then just our regular y. So when we write our new image coordinates, our x, each one will be adding 2, and then our y is just going to stay the same. So our new image coordinates would be A prime is 3, 2, B prime is 3, 4, and C prime is 5, 3. Now they wanted us to graph, so we're going to graph our pre-image in green. So 1, 2, make sure you label A, B, and C. And we have 1, 4, and C is 3, 3. We're going to connect all those points to make our figure. Now we want to graph the image, our new image. So we're going to do 3, 2, as A prime. We have 3, 4 as B prime. And then we have 5, 3 as C prime. We connect these dots to get our new image. And if you look, it didn't move up and down at all because our y didn't change, and y is up and down, but it moved to the right. Every point moved to the right 2 because the x changed by 2. Next, I want you to write the rule for number 3 and the new image coordinates.